Hi, my name is Mike Bachevich with Third Evolution, and this is one of a three-part series on does your business need my services? More specifically, this would be most appropriate if you feel you have a healthy business, but you've got some self-inflicted wounds on your business execution model, your business processes, and your outcomes. They would specifically come out and reveal themselves in a growing AR, accounts receivable, payments not happening, reduction in margins, things like that. And I'll get into those specifics. But in this particular case, what we first want to talk about is a transformation versus a turnaround. And the reason it's a transformation, or the need for a transformation, would specifically be because you believe the business practice is sound. You believe you have a good market, you've got a pipeline, and for some reason, you've got these self-inflicted wounds on your project execution. And so what I wanted to first start with was just, I had this conversation, this incredible conversation with an amazing woman who runs a French explosives company in Central Africa. And so as we were speaking, I went through where and how would it become evident that my services might be of value. And so basically, you've got an organization, you've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got project execution, and probably within that project execution, you've got third-party vendors, so you're integrating a much larger solution, probably very technical. And then from that execution, you've got to ship it to site, commission it, and then perform a performance test to verify that you've met your contractual obligations, and then start it up and turn it over, and ostensibly then have a nice software as a service in maintaining this. So that's sort of the notion. On the other hand, a turnaround would be where everything's sort of disastrous and there's a whole heck of a lot more going on that you can't get your hands on. Some of it you can. These discussions are about it ought to go much better than it is, and my goodness, can you help? And so in that regard, I think one of the first things then is when you have your marketing, and we're assuming you've got a pipeline filled, probably you'd like it to be more full. However, it's been filled based on how that marketing was presented to the market. And then your sales folks took that and closed the deals, and then through your legal or contracts, formed a contract that then got handed to your execution team and its subordinate third-party elements that then needed to be executed, shipped correctly to the field, started up, and turned over. Okay, problem is you're struggling. More than likely, what I've seen is what you marketed and what you sold, when that got handed to your execution team, there was already vagueness and ambiguity in there, particularly if it's technical, if it's got AI involved, if it's got process control, things like that. And so now all of a sudden, where you may be is the board, and we're taking this from a board and C-suite perspective in part one. So when the board or the chairs start looking at, we've got our project execution from our handoff from our sales team with the contract to the execution team, we've got some disconnects there. And those disconnects manifest themselves in going back and forth, delaying on the project, although the project's been started. So you've got a timeline, and within that timeline, you're in business to make money. And typically in these projects, the way you do that is with milestone payments. Milestone payments are frequently based on deliverables. Those are the milestones. And some of the first milestones would be the signing of the contract, where you get a nice little dose to get going. And then there may be engineering completion, process flow diagrams, some level of P&ID development. And then beyond that, though, is usually you're starting to look at recognizing revenue because you've shipped equipment to site. Okay, and this is where things can get a little wonky. So if you're on the board or one of the chairs, all of a sudden you start realizing things are having a tendency to slow down. The project team being handed the sales and contract has some ambiguity in it, so already they're slowing down. And then from there, you've got the client side wanting to slow down on the payments, hence the accounts receivable isn't going as well as you expected. And pretty soon, you see this as a tendency, it's a trait. It's not just one job. Now all of a sudden you've got this pipeline full of 20, 30 projects, and the first few that have been sold this way are not going well. And so now somewhere somebody like you is going, my goodness, how about these other 25 that we've already booked? If they're all done the same way, we've got this same problem on all of them. And then the next step, I've seen this enough times, is somebody's going to get released. It could be a VP of engineering, they usually go first. It could be a chief technical officer, and then ultimately the CEO, because the problem doesn't get resolved. And now what you've got is a pipeline full of disasters, and you're trying to figure out how to take that, triage it, and turn it into something that's got a net positive revenue as well as repeat business. Because probably you're not getting repeat business and you've spent all this time, and now all of a sudden you're saying, where did we go wrong? What's happening? And that's where I come in. And so from that perspective, I'd like to say the next few steps are, what kind of businesses are we more specifically talking about? And so these would be project-based solutions businesses, usually an integration or an integrated solution. Technical, it's got a network. You've got operator interfaces. Of course, they could be desk-bound. Don't care if it's in the cloud. Don't care if it's your own servers. And then from there, you've got field-based equipment, skids. You've probably got a core technical expertise that's in-house. And then you've got a number of third-party folk